This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Cornerstone Home Inspector Education Center. Tonight we have vinyl siding installation and defects for home inspectors presented by Scott Montefiore, one of our owners. If you would, please keep your microphones muted. If you have any questions, you can use the chat bot or unmute. And then once you're done with the question, please mute yourself. Take it over, Scott.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to any new members, and welcome to all our members that we've had and have been with us since we started. We appreciate your membership, and thanks again. So vinyl siding installation. I'm going to give you, I wish I could pass it around, but I have some stuff that I can show you guys as best I can too, and go over it as we go through the presentation. State standards, combined multi-state exterior standards, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, New York, and Mass. When performing an exterior inspection, the home inspector shall observe, inspect, and report on the exterior wall coverings, cladding, trim, finishes, and flashing. Please see your specific state for more information. Maintain a consistency with standards of practice. Your state standards of practice define your inspection scope and limitations. Every narrative must align with these standards, clearly indicating what you did inspect and what falls outside of your scope of practice. Critical scope elements: visual inspection only, no invasive examination, representative sampling, not comprehensive evaluation of every component, no removal of siding, trim, or accessories, no confirmation of weather resistant barriers, that would be underneath the siding, no testing of moisture content, no verification of manufacturer specifications. Now, I mean, it says visual only, and then we'll get into, like, it's not just about visual. You can actually, if you suspect that there's some rot underneath, I mean, I push on the wall. I mean, is that visual? No. I mean, so there is, and most of you guys have been doing this a while. We'll go over some of that stuff, some of the stuff that I've seen, and indication that there could be a problem underneath the siding, whether it be vinyl, wood, cement, board, brick. Go ahead, Jim. Wait a minute. Liability, go back there. Liability protection. When your narrative clearly states what couldn't be confirmed during visible inspection, you protect yourself from claims that you missed concealed defects discovered only through invasive examination. Go ahead. Why vinyl siding matters to your inspection. Vinyl siding it's the most common applied material these days, representing about 30% of exterior home market. In certain areas, that's all we have is vinyl siding today versus wood, clapboard, and cedar shakes and shingles. As a home inspector, your evaluation of this system is critical to identifying potential moisture intrusion, installation concerns, and long-term performance issues. Despite being a prevalent, vinyl siding is frequently misunderstood by homeowners, installers, and even some of us inspectors. Many assume it's waterproof barrier when actually it's designed to shed water. This distinction is a fundamental to recognizing defects and explaining their significance. Go ahead, Jim. Common misunderstandings: vinyl siding is waterproof. Reality, vinyl siding sheds water. Not a waterproof membrane. Water management depends on flashing, drainage, planes, and underlying water-resistant barrier. Tyvek, tar paper, and there's a whole bunch of other ones out there. Myth: all buckling is a material defect. Reality: most buckling and warping results from improper installation, overdriven fasteners, panels locked too tight, preventing thermal expansion. And also, even after it's installed, sometimes there's things that's done to the siding, and we'll talk about that, why it buckles. And there's other warping, obviously grills, air conditioning units, they can cause warping, buckling, melting of it. Sealant can replace flashing. Reality: caulk and sealants deteriorate over time. Proper flashing provides long-term protection that sealants cannot replicate, especially at critical junctions like windows, roof lines, where the trim meets, corner posts, outside corners, all kinds of stuff. And that's even more important with other types of siding as well. Home inspector, your role as a home inspector: visual observation, identification, observable defects, no determination of code compliance, no confirmation of proper installation per manufacturer specs, limit to accessible, visible conditions at the time of the inspection. Siding contract, invasive examination repairs. Sometimes they have to take it off to see what's going on underneath. Removal of components to assess concealed conditions. Determination of installation compliance. Cost estimates for corrections. And even sometimes as a contractor, you're going to go in there and say, hey, you know, it could be this much, it could be that much. It just depends once I open it up, you know, especially if the plywood's rotted, if there's some framing rot, you know, that could be more. And usually they'll let the client know, you know, it could be this price, could be that price. And sometimes you get in there and you find out there's a lot more than just what you saw when you initially took the siding off. Code official, enforcement of building codes, approval installations during construction, authority to require corrections, jurisdiction-specific requirements. Understanding these boundaries protects you from liability while ensuring clients receive appropriate recommendations for further evaluation when needed. Go ahead, Jim. Your viewing code, if you're watching, VS8373. That's 8373. Vinyl siding fundamentals for home inspectors. Go ahead, Jim. Basic components of vinyl siding. Siding panels, horizontal or vertical panels. I happen to have, I don't know if you can see it. This is a board and batten one I put on my garage. You see those before. That's like the first one. There's various profiles. What happened? I lost it.
Well, no, if you want to show something, I got to put that down. So go ahead.
Right. So this is a board and batten. You can see where, and this type of siding, which I didn't get it with mine, you can actually put insulation underneath it. But if you can see it, this is the batten. This is, and each one clips into the next one, where clapboard would be this way. It clips in this way. And then next course, and next course, and next course. Start at the bottom of your starter strip and work your way up. Go ahead, Jim.
So you see it?
Yeah, you can go back to the.
Well, so right now I'm on components. So siding panels. Oh, so did you want to talk about J channels or?
Yeah, I'm not seeing the.
Oh, hold on.
I'm not seeing the presentation.
You're not seeing the PowerPoint?
I just see everybody. Brady Bunch.
All right, hold on. Give me 1 second.
Not yet.
Hold on. How about now?
Nope. I don't know what happened. I see myself. I see myself in the center, and then all the guys on top.
All right, hold on. Let me try it again.
If you would just want to, you could just take it over and get me out of the co-host. Maybe that was it.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see. Screen sharing. Stan, can you see it when I pull it up?
No.
All right, hold on.
Gentlemen, guys, can you see me though? You can see me, right? So while he's doing this, this is a 3/4 J channel. Just to give you a profile out of it. You guys see this all the time. This is a little bigger because I had it on my board and batten. That's a 3/4 J channel on the bottom. There you go. Excellent.
You see it now?
Yep. We're good. Sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Starter strips. Starter strips. Foundation course that locks the first row. So you have a starter strip on the bottom. Yeah, you lock the first row in. And you know, when I inspect vinyl siding, guys, and I'm sure you do, I actually pull on the bottom, and sometimes it's either disconnected or it's missing. There is no starter strip. So that whole part, the whole bottom of the siding is just kind of flapping. You know, check it. You can put your hand on there. You'll feel. And sometimes it unclips, and there's reasons why it does that. We'll talk about that. There's starter strips, the first row. There's a J channel. We talked about the J channel. There's corner posts, inside, outside corner posts, you know, where the siding goes right into the inside corner, and then outside corner. There is also material that is out there that it's a AZAC trim. Harvey makes it. I did it on my garage. It's a J channel, 1x4 you can get, and then it has like the J channel, and then the siding just tucks right in it. It just looks nicer. You can miter it and makes it look nicer around the windows and doors. You can also rip some AZAC and make your own custom stuff too. A lot of guys do that. There is trim accessories, freeze board. What a freeze board is, if you look where the soffit is, that has brick there, and it almost looks like it might be wood siding. That little board underneath is a freeze board where the siding goes up to the freeze board, and that kind of covers any gaps, any openings, prevents any animals or bugs. I mean, the bees still sneak in there. And, you have different various trim pieces. There's a utility trim. I'm going to see if you can see this. This is an undersill. A lot of guys, and this is what I see all the time. This is an undersill. Let me see. I don't know if you can see it. See the piece of undersill? How you hook that in? Let me show you. So if you have a piece of siding, hold on. Sorry about that. So the siding, you know how the guys cut the siding under the windows? A lot of times you see it just sitting there and it's loose and it's constantly falling down. We see it all the time. You see it up on the top. If it's not in the J channel. So the undersill, you see how that sits right in there on the undersill? I mean, this is just a piece of flashing. So if I cut the siding and it's not clipped on, the clip is like this is cut. If this is cut, this is going to go into the undersill, under the sill of the window, locks right in. And, if it's J channel up towards the soffit, or if it's the J channel this way around the windows, the siding will just tuck right in it just like that. I don't know if I can see it. So a lot of siding manufacturers make some pretty cool accessories for the siding. If you notice in here, it shows screws. We're not using screws. We're using galvanized or aluminum. I use roofing nails, about 1.5 inches, inch and a half. The longer, the better. You could, could you use 1 inch? Yeah, it's a little small, especially if you have siding under it already, but we'll talk about that. Go ahead. Visual inspection limitations. As a home inspector, you're conducting a visual only non-invasive evaluation. You're not removing siding panels, trim, or accessories to examine concealed conditions. This fundamental limitation must be clearly communicated in your reporting. You cannot confirm the presence or absence of weather-resistant barriers. That's underneath the siding. Proper flashing. Some things you can see, some things you can't see. Kick-out flashing up, and over the windows. So you probably see it around the deck. Adequate fastener penetration or the condition of underlying sheathing without removal of components, which is outside your scope. Your inspection identifies observable indicators that suggest the need for further evaluation by a qualified contractor who can perform invasive examinations when conditions warrant. If you suspect something is rot, like you just look, and if you think the wall, there's some rot and it's a little soft, the wall is kind of bowed a little bit, or it's sticking out, and you push on it, you can kind of feel if the plywood is rotted or the siding that's under there. And sometimes it's under the deck, it's alongside the deck, there's no flashing, and water gets behind it, and it starts to rot the siding. And a lot of times, I have a picture, I wish I put it on here to show you that once they took all the vinyl siding off, there was carpenter ant damage, there was all rotted, all the plywood was rotted underneath, and even the studs in the wall. Installation defects versus material failure. Installation defects. Fastening errors restrict moving. When you put this siding in, for example, I think I could look right here. I should have grabbed some nails. If you nail everything on one side or the other, it doesn't have any movement left or right. All the nails should be in the center. Are they perfectly in the center? Probably not. But if they're one side, if one nail's here, one nail's there, it's not going to move left or right, because this can expand and contract 1/4 to 1/2 inch, especially vertically. It'll move up and down. So if the nail is driven too far, I like to leave a dime. It's just leave a little bit where it has movement. So the nail should be in the center. You can't see this. Sometimes you'll see the nails popping up, and we'll talk about that as well. Insufficient clearance. Sometimes you can't help it. How many times do we point out the siding is right near the grading instead of having about 6 inches? I'll take 2 or 3 inches. But when it's right on the soil or right up to the mulch, they end up bringing the mulch in. That could be a source for moisture, termites, carpenter ants, et cetera, et cetera. Don't forget, there's wood underneath this. So even though it's vinyl, it could still sneak under there. So I make note of that. Missing or proper installed flashing. Flashing around windows. Sometimes they'll do vinyl siding and the window trim's all wood. and water can get back there. Sometimes the wood is all rotted. A lot of times I like to wrap it, wrap all the wood. And if it's rotted, replace it or put AZAC on there. Panels locked too tight together. Again, it could be because they nailed it wrong. If you go winter versus summer, if it's not cut with a gap on each side, maybe a 1/4 inch, if you're in the J channel like this, you should be able to, when you do an inspection, I try to slide it a little bit. Now, is that visual? No. I mean, I take it and I make sure it slides a little bit. I'll grab the siding and make sure it slides left to right. Sometimes it's real tight and you'll see the buckling. You'll see the waviness. If it's too tight into the J channel, there should be about a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on the other side. So there's enough room to move left or right. Improper trim and accessory placement. There's a lot of trim. If you're putting trim around the windows, the doors, you got to just make sure everything is flashed properly, or water is going to get behind it. It's going to get behind the siding. It can get into the walls. You may see indications on the windows on the inside where the sheetrock is damaged. Even in the basement, sometimes I'll see around basement windows where it's unfinished basement, you'll see water stains or water is coming behind around the windows because they weren't flashed properly. Sliding doors. I had one yesterday, the sliding at 1999. You look in the basement and right behind the ledger, the rim was all water stains, and it was right above the door, and it was right where the deck is. There was all water stains down there. Was it flashed right from the siding? Don't know. Couldn't see. Was the door flashed properly? Who knows? Material failures, brittleness from UV degradation over time. A lot of the old siding has faded. It gets chalky, spotted. The newer siding, the colors are the formula is a lot better, so it doesn't fade as much. But even old siding, everybody think vinyl is final. That's not the case. Vinyl can fade. It can crack. This is very thick. The lower end siding is not as thick as, it's 0.035, and the upper end is about 0.055 inches. So it's much thicker, and you could feel it. When you feel it, you'll feel the thin stuff. And a lot of times when you see cracks, you could just feel when you press on this is pretty thick. This is the top of the line, CertainTeed. The lower end stuff, you have builders in between, and you got really good stuff in between, and then the low end stuff. Sometimes these flippers put the low end stuff on. When it's new, it's not bad, but over time, it can start to fail. There are defects in the vinyl formulation. A lot of the companies have gotten better on that. Color fading beyond normal weathering. Color fading beyond normal weathering. I'm going to say something, and maybe some people agree, maybe some won't. You can actually, I just painted our baseball. Stan remembers our dugouts. And now if you paint vinyl with a dark color, it's going to absorb light, spray it, roll it, back brush, roll, back brush. If you kind of keep the same color, a little, lighter colors, I haven't seen any issues with it. Darker colors, my house neighbor painted with a darker color, and it's all warping. I wish I took a picture of it and added it in here. You can power wash this stuff. You got to be careful when you power wash it. That you can actually discolor it. Some of the guys use certain chemicals on it. You can actually discolor it. But to get off, this stuff will still get mildew on it. We see it all the time. Shaded side, mildew, discolorations, dirt, even the weep holes on the bottom sometimes get clogged up, and after you power wash it, you see all kinds of stuff next day, and you're wondering what's going on. It's all leaking out from behind the siding. Premature cracking not related to installation. Cheaper ones could crack, especially if they're really tight. If somebody decides to put a light, they put a light on it, and they don't use a special box designed for siding. As it moves, sometimes if they don't put F channel or J channel or even an undersill, and they start nailing it, face nailing it, it's not going to move. It could warp. It could crack. That's why if you do, a lot of times I'll pre-drill a hole, maybe put a small screw or nail, so at least it has movement where you can hide it. You hide that nail so you don't always see it. And there's a little tricks of the trade. A lot of guys just face nail it. That last piece on top, we always see it falling down. You get to the inspection, that top piece is hanging down. There's no clip. It's just hanging down, and sometimes you see a couple trim, the flashing nails in it. That's really not the right way to do it. This represents the vast majority of vinyl siding issues you can encounter during inspection that result from poor workmanship or lack of adherence to manufacturer guidelines. That's what you're supposed to follow. You know, I double checked on how much I had to cut off the top and bottom when I installed this. It's actually a little bit more than it is with your traditional clapboard siding. Material failures are relatively uncommon with modern vinyl products. When present, they typically affect multiple panels and show consistent patterns across the installation. I mean, if there's some problem with it, it's under warranty. If it's newer stuff, the companies are pretty good. If it's just like a roof, could be great shingles, great siding, but if it's not installed properly, they're going to say we're not going to warranty it. You can look at this gentleman right here. You see almost like a dime. If you can see the nail there, there's like a little dime spacing on there. You don't want to overdrive it. How many times have we seen siding where they overdrive it and you see the siding kind of whoop-de-doo? Then there are times where you'll notice the nails, maybe they're too short. And if you look at the siding, did you ever see white spots where the nails are? You look at the siding, white spot, because the nails are actually starting to push out. You push on the siding and you can feel the nail. The nail is working its way out. Maybe it wasn't long enough. Maybe there's some rot underneath. I've seen whole sides with these white little spots from the nail heads. Vinyl siding is engineered to accommodate significant dynamic movement, expands with and contracts with temperature fluctuations. For example, a standard 12-foot panel can move a half an inch. This thermal expansion and contraction is a normal characteristic of vinyl siding and is crucial for its long-term performance. The entire siding system, from panels to accessories, must be installed properly to accommodate this inherent movement to prevent common defects like buckling, warping, or cracking.
It is highly sought after.
When we first saw this, I honestly thought just
Please mute yourselves.
just a sticker, so I don't know
Hold
if it was
on.
real or
So I thought, you know, of course, it could have been a secret chip, and I think this is in line with the.
Has somebody got a question? I'm not sure.
I'm all stuck. No. They're not muting. Okay, can you see this?
We're good.
Okay.
Color
Go ahead.
fading, vinyl siding. Understanding UV exposure, color fading, and vinyl siding is a natural aging process, primarily caused by prolonged exposure to UV radiation from the sun. Over time, UV rays break down the pigments in the vinyl siding, leading to gradual loss of color vibrancy on exposed surfaces. So a lot of times when the siding contracts, you'll notice the dark original color, and then the surface has faded over time. And then when it expands again, you don't notice that little color variation in the siding. There's not much you could do about it. Again, you know, even this siding, which has been on my garage since 2015, it's faded a little bit. I have one piece I hit with the snowblower when I was blowing snow in the back and cracked it in the winter, and so I got to replace it. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot brighter than the other, and it'll lighten up over time. Factors affect fading. The extent and rate of color fading can vary significantly based on several factors, including the original color of the siding, the quality of vinyl formulation, and the intensity and duration of sun exposure in particular climate. So areas of the house that have more sun, we see this all the time, they fade more than the areas that are not exposed to the sun. Under the deck, a lot of times that siding is in pretty good shape. That's another thing I tell people. If there's a crack, we see cracks to siding, lawnmower, weed whacker, corner post, that's rocks getting kicked up from the mower. Sometimes you can always take, if there's no extra siding or you can't get that siding, sometimes you could take a piece or two from under the deck. You know, you can work something back there. So you know, especially if the bottom of the deck's closed in, take those pieces off and move them to the other side. And that would be something I would do if I had to do a repair for somebody. Cosmetic versus structural. While color fading can impact its aesthetic, it's a cosmetic issue rather than a structural one. Modern vinyl siding is engineered to maintain its structural integrity for decades, even as its color fades. Go ahead, Jim. This siding is like a shiplap siding. You can see there's actually foam insulation under there. That's more expensive. You can actually push on the siding and this type of siding, and if there's insulation under there, sometimes they'll just put this, you know, the straight square pieces that are, you know, they're not contoured to the siding under there. That's fine. That's, you see a lot of houses, they just throw it up and then they put the siding over it. This case, this is designed for this. It's a lot more expensive. Panels overlap like shingles, directing water down. The locking mechanisms at the panel edge creates an overlap while allowing the panels to remove independently. Even though this is locked in, it still will move side to side. Go ahead, Jim. The water shedding system. Vinyl siding works as part of a multi-layer protection system. Water that penetrates the siding is managed by components working together in a specific hierarchy. First line, the siding. Overlapping panels shed most of the water away from the wall assembly. They do have weep holes on the bottom of it, slits to allow any moisture that might have gone in through the side or penetrated to weep out. Second line, drainage plane, water that penetrates reaches the weather-resistant barrier and drains downward. Tyvek, there's a whole bunch of them out there, a lot of different companies. And that has to be installed properly too. A lot of guys staple it. There's special type nails. Can you tape it off? You see all this Z tape. When you see all these panels, and you see all the panels are now taped. The roof has to be taped. We've learned a lot. Sometimes old school tar paper lasts for years and, never had any problems, or the old felt paper that they used to use years ago. But we're making things tighter and we're trying to keep the water out as best we can. Third line, flashing, properly installed flashing at penetrations and transitions directs water away from the exterior. We've always seen where there might have been siding, wood siding underneath. They put the vinyl siding, the gutters are near it, and they cut around the gutter. There's a big gap in there. Water comes down off the roof. There's not a piece of, more so with wood or exterior insulating finishing, but sometimes you'll see water getting behind the siding because they didn't flash it properly where it intersects the roof, where it intersects trim, freeze boards. Maybe the pieces are cut too short. Water, it gets behind the corner post. Water has a way to, it'll get in somewhere. So even by decks, a lot of these guys they'll side the house, they'll cut the ledger in and they don't flash it. Maybe they'll just put a little flashing, but yet you see this all the time. They'll put maybe a little flashing, Z flashing. I kind of made some here. So everybody goes, what's he talking about? Z flashing, right? It looks like a Z. So there's your deck, right? The ledger board goes right here. It's over the top. This goes underneath the siding, but on the end, there's nothing. And then you can see where the vinyl siding's cut up to it. No J channel. There's no flashing there. And water can get in behind there. And it can get in behind the wall, can rot the plywood. It can get inside, leak into the basement, damage if it's finished, damage the sheetrock. You'll see it around the windows too. Again, on top of a window. If a window is here and it doesn't have any flashing on top, sorry about that. If it has no flashing on top of the window, here's the window trim and there's no flashing on top, water can get behind it. If you don't tape off the windows properly, especially with the Tyvek, water can get behind, even with vinyl siding. Final line, weep holes, drainage openings allow accumulated water to escape rather than being trapped. When any layer fails or is improperly installed, the system ineffectiveness is compromised, increasing moisture intrusion risk. And that's almost with anything, wood too, or even cement board siding. Importance of flashing and drainage planes. Flashing is the most critical component you cannot see during a visual inspection. There's some things you can see. You can't always see the flash on the cement board right where they butt. They're supposed to be flashing underneath, right? I don't know if everybody remembers. So clapboard, cement board, they're supposed to be flashing underneath. You can't always see it. It is also the most frequently omitted or improperly installed element in vinyl siding applications. While you cannot confirm its presence without removal, you can observe indicators of absence or inadequacy. I saw not too long ago, water was getting into the soffit. There was issues. Could have been ice damming. Also, they actually bent the flashing up. The gutter, it's just like this. So the gutter connects, the flashing was just pushed underneath the siding and water was getting behind the flashing, was leaking down into the soffit, was getting down behind the siding, and I saw all this staining. So if you see some staining or discolorations, possibly water could be getting in behind there. Just make the call, have somebody come out. I'd rather have somebody prove me wrong than somebody get in there and find out that they have a problem. And sometimes it's hard to tell. Key observations, staining, discolorations, or evidence of moisture at windows, doors, roof-to-wall intersections often indicates flashing deficiencies, especially with wood siding. You'll see a lot of mildew growing along the siding where the water's running down. There's no diverter flashing. A lot of guys don't do it, and it can get behind the walls. Same thing with vinyl, wood, everything. The weather-resistant barrier, house wrap, or building paper must also be properly integrated with flashing to create a continuous drainage plane. Gaps or discontinuities in the system compromises the entire assembly performance. So if somebody adds a window and they add a window to a house that's already sided, you have to reflash everything. You have to redo it. Some guys do a good job, some guys do a bad job, and then water can get in there. Panels require a minimum of quarter-inch clearance at trim, corner posts, and accessories to accommodate expansion. That's on both sides. Panels cut to exact fit will buckle when temperature rises. So it expands. And if we've all done an inspection where the first course on the bottom and 3 or 4 courses up, it's unclipped. And sometimes I'll go over there and try to see if I can clip it back in and it pops out. So what does that mean? It's possible that they installed it when it was cold and they didn't install it tight enough. Maybe the nails are too short. It's worked its way out. So now the only way to fix that, and I just did a house not that long ago, unclipped, and there's no way to get in. The only way to fix that, and here it is you literally have to take it all the way down to where it's unclipped and reinstall it and re-nail it. A lot of times the nails are too short. Maybe there's some rot that you can't see, but you'll see them popping off. Sometimes you can clip it back up. Sometimes the wind just gets under there and pops it off, and it's just easy to get up there and pop it back in. Doesn't matter. It's unclipped. Just make sure you point it out and tell them. It could be a big deal, and you might have to remove all the siding to make that repair. If it's up towards the top, it's a lot easier. Panels cut to exact fit will buckle. So just move it side to side like we talked about before. I always check it. Just get in there, move it. Chances are if a couple spots move easily, sometimes you got to kind of grab right where they join together and slide the 2 pieces. Relationship between siding and underlining materials. Vinyl siding depends on properly installed and lapped weather-resistant barrier, sound, adequately fastened sheathing, appropriate fastening substrate for nails. Plywood is better. Those zip panels that you see, those green panels out there, those are really good. Appropriate, properly fast penetrations and transitions, adequately ventilation behind foam back products. Warning signs of underlying issues: sagging or waviness across multiple courses, loose panels despite apparently properly nailing, soft or spongy feel when pressing the panels. I've picked up rot before, like I said before, water staining or discoloration patterns, pest entry evidence around penetration. Sometimes birds, squirrels, they'll chew holes and they'll end up into the soffit, into the attic. So here's the thing: when I see waviness, I look to see where it's wavy. A lot of times they add a light, right? They put a spotlight in the back and they screw it directly in. Once you screw that in or nail the siding, it's not going to move left to right. And eventually it'll start to warp, right? And buckle. Now, anything that's vinyl or plastic, over time, if you stretch it and stretch it and stretch it and it doesn't have ability to move, what happens? It just kind of stays where it is and it doesn't go back. So if it stretches too much, you might get unclipping of the siding too. Maybe it's so tight, it doesn't move, and then it just stretches, and then when it expands, it kind of pops and unclips. So anytime there's a light added, I added an outlet onto my house, I put a box in there, and it has the little J channel around it, a little light box. Most people don't do it. They just screw it right to the siding, and then you have a problem. Again, if you suspect an area where there might be a problem, push on the siding. You'll feel if it's soft. It should not be really soft. The other thing too is some of that fiber boards they used to use back in the day that was underneath. You see it in garages all the time. They nail the siding to the outside and there's that fiber board that's on the inside. That may cause the nails to loosen up if they put vinyl siding over it. Sometimes improper repairs, they do an addition, they rip the siding off and the guy's put it back wrong. They might add something and you see the mismatch and all the seams lined up and you start to say, what's going on here? Go ahead, Jim. Common vinyl siding installation defects. Go ahead. Nails driven too tight. Fastener heads compress the nailing hem against the wall, preventing horizontal movement. We talked about that. You can get buckle, distortions, waviness. Nails not centered in slots. We talked about that. Over nailing, you drive them in too far. They do that on roofs all the time with these nailing guns. The old guys that had no fingers are all banged up. They used to have all the nails in here and just bang it in. These guys now overdrive at angle and they put holes through the shingles. No different with the siding if they nail it in too far. And the better you get at this, you know, you can almost hit it one shot, couple taps, and you know right where to stop. And again, if I nail it too far, I'll pull it out a little bit. I want to make sure that I can move it after I put that course on, and I just move it a little bit, make sure it's not too tight. And also the nailing pattern, 12 to 16 inches. There shouldn't be a nail here, nail here, nail here every inch or two. It should be at least 12 to 16 inches apart. Face nailing. We see it all the time. That last course right up there, it's sliding down. You can see the J channel on top. Jim's got the arrow on there. They see it sliding down, so they're like, oh, you know what? Now, what I would do, I'm not saying you can't face nail it. I would lift up that J channel or the undersill, drill a little hole so the nail is bigger than the hole, maybe a bigger head nail, roofing nail, or a screw, and just make sure the hole is big enough and then screw it in so it has some movement. And you'll never see it because it's underneath the J channel. I mean, you can get creative with it. The undersill will hold it real well underneath the window. Most times they don't put the undersill. They just leave that little piece, and they always are constantly falling down. And we see it all the time when we inspect. Fastening must be centered in the slots, you know, about a dime distance between the hem and the head of the nail, which is a 1/32 of an inch, 1/32 of an inch gap. Go ahead, Jim. Identify overdriven fasteners, panel, nailing hem compressed tightly against the wall surface, no visible gap between fastener head and nailing hem, dimple or it's deformed. The nailing hem is deformed. You can't always see the nailing hem, but you'll see the siding, you know, wavy a little bit. It could also be the wall itself. The wall could be off, you know, older homes. The panels don't move left or right, buckling, waviness, bowing. These all could be indications that it's nailed too tight or it's not cut properly. Best practice, manufacturers, that distance is 1/32 of an inch clearance, and you should be fine. This allows movement left to right without any problems. Corrosion-prone fasteners, uncoated steel. Most guys use, I mean, I've seen stainless steel roofing nails, galvanized roofing nails, aluminum roofing nails. You know, some guys will have stuff left over and they'll use what they have. Incorrect length. Fasteners must penetrate the sheathing. Don't forget, if there's clapboard or siding underneath, it's got to be long enough. No different than a roof. You got to make sure that head or that nail penetrates the siding and all the way in so it doesn't work its way out. Wrong head style. Again, most guys use roofing nails. That's big enough to hold it. You don't want to use any trim nails too small. Shouldn't use screws, although I'm sure guys use it, but most use roofing nails. Document any visible rust staining, failed fasteners. I mean, if you see some rust, it is possible that the fasteners are starting to rust underneath. I usually just see a lot of the, I'll either see where there might be some staining because there's water coming down behind the wall, maybe from ice damming, maybe there's water getting behind a window and there's some rot and you see some staining or discolorations. Or if you know, sometimes you might see even some moisture weeping out of the holes on certain times of the day. Now this picture right here, if you look at it, I see all the time by the decks. If it's by a patio or a deck, more than likely, if it looks like that, it's from the gas grill. Yeah, all the time, right? Gas grill, George Foreman, Weber grill. It's, you know, most of the time it's from that. If you see it, you can also see it if the AC unit is too close to the siding. It may also melt and warp the siding from the air conditioning, the hot air coming off of it. If you look in the front of the house and there's a little jog and you see warping, you're like, nobody had a gas grill up here. Usually what that's from, and my neighbor had it across the street, that's from the window reflection, low E windows. Now the window matter for, it's not our fault, and the siding, it's not, everyone wants to blame it. It's from the reflection from the window. Reflecting, the sun hits it a certain way, it's like a magnifying glass and it melts the siding. There's nothing wrong with the siding, and there's certainly nothing wrong with the window. So, if he replaced it over here and it melted again. So then he actually put a different front window in. Instead of having the bay window, now it's a straight window. So it hasn't been an issue since then. Sometimes a screen will help, sometimes putting a bush in front of it. But if it's in front of the house or in a little corner where there's a window and a little jog, chances are it's from the window. It's not from the gas grill. Or it's the guy who put the faucet on the outside and decided to heat, sweat it a little bit and got too hot on the inside and the pipe got hot and melted a little bit. But that's usually rare. These pictures are interesting. Buckling. Outward bowing of panels, typically horizontal, caused by overdriven fasteners or panels locked too tight. We talked about that. Oil canning, wavy, rippled appearance. It doesn't matter what it looks like. If it's wavy, buckled, warped, melted, just put it in your report. It's not our job to try to figure out what's causing it. Let somebody come in. Sometimes they got to take everything off and replace it. Sometimes it wasn't installed right. I mean, if it's too tight and it's buckled, if you go like this and if it's warped, first thing I do is go like this. If it's tight, chances are that's the problem. Cracking, splitting, we see it all the time. Lawnmowers, the corner post on the bottom, it's from the weed whacker. Guys just go over there and weed whack it. They crack it, especially when it's colder out. In the wintertime, maybe they hit it with the snow blower. They blow stuff at it. Most of the time that's, could it be hail? Chances are hail hits the roof. Wind-driven hail could crack it, but more than likely it's probably from a kid throwing a baseball, something getting thrown at it, something getting kicked out of the lawnmower. Panels locked too tightly together. Manufacturers require a 1/4 inch clearance between panels, ends, and trim or corner posts to accommodate expansion. When installers cut panels to exact fit, they're going to be too tight. These panels have nowhere to expand during temperature increases. You'll also see on certain types of panel, they have summer and winter. A lot of that certainty impressions, it looks like cedar. I've gone to these houses where you see big gaps and, like what is, there's temperature settings. If it's winter, different temperature settings to install that. If they don't follow the manufacturer's specifications, you'll get these huge gaps. I mean, wood siding is not perfect. So I get there's going to be a little variation, but when you see huge gaps, it wasn't done right. My father's condo, a couple of the units that were done there are these huge gaps. They're unclipping. It just wasn't installed. Different times of the year, different temperature settings to install those panels. This is direct particular comment. Inside, outside corners where J channels around windows and doors, horizontal seams where panels meet, and transition points between siding and other materials. So if you're butting it up against something else, you got to have a little expansion joint. Usually the J channel takes care of that. So you can, if you just butted it up right against, say you used AZAC and you butt it right up and caulked it, it's going to crack. Caulk's going to crack. Caulk is okay, but it's not permanent. Flashing is most important. So that J channel is going to help and whatever's underneath it. Proper clearances protect vinyl siding from moisture exposure, physical damage, and premature deterioration. These requirements are specific and measurable, making clearance deficiency some of the most straightforward defects to identify and document during an inspection. I laugh because it says right here 6 inches, right? We always say, we're not doing code. So if it's not good. If you look here, it says 6 inches to concrete. When you go over to deck and patio, it says 1 inch to concrete patios. Sometimes it's real low. Sometimes it was never low and they bring the mulch in and they pile the mulch and it gets up real high. We always point that out. Moisture damage, insect. It's something on every house. A lot of houses, it's foundation's up high enough. It's not an issue. And those are usually the areas where you can have problems, carpenter ants, termites. So it's just something to mention. And a lot of times they go so low on the concrete, they can't put a starter strip. And the whole front of the house, you'll see it. You'll go down, you'll lift it up, and there's no starter strip. There should have been a starter strip, and they didn't do it. Insufficient clearance to soil and mulch. Siding installed too close to grade creates multiple problems, retains moisture, transfers it directly to siding through capillary action. Landscaping mulch against siding, wicks water up, and creates conditions favorable to insect activity. This is more for the plywood underneath, not so much for the vinyl siding. Has anybody ever seen those? If you look at this siding, okay, you see this siding, it has little black dots. Does anybody know what that is? And everybody goes, what the heck is this stuff? There's black dots. And it's more prevalent on lighter color siding. Do you know what that is from? That is from the mulch there's a fungi in the mulch that's blows out these little black dots. I'm sure we've done white siding, light coated siding, and you see all these white dots. You're like, what, somebody dropped paint? They're tiny little black dots, almost like if you took your pen and just kind of touched the siding. They're hard to get off. You can scrape them with a knife. You can use a magic eraser. You could try pressure washing them off, but that is from the mulch. It's usually when people bring wood mulch around the front, because if you notice, it's right where the mulch is, where the mulch beds are. So that's just something that, and you see it a lot on light color siding. Common finding: landscaping changes after siding installation often reduce original characteristics. The guys come in and they pile it and pile it and pile it. While not an installation defect, the conditions still require correction to prevent damage. So if it's really too high, I'll tell the people, hey, if you can get the landscaper, or just bring the mulch down a little bit more. I'm not a big mulch fan. I like stone in the front, no bugs, no animals, no cat. We have a lot of wild cats and neighbors' cats, and they use the mulch for their, they go to the bathroom all the time. So I went with rocks, and I haven't had a problem. Look for moisture staining, discoloration, or softness at lower course of siding. The siding is not going to be soft, but if the plywood or OSB underneath, whatever they used underneath, is rotted, the siding you may be able to pull sections of siding. If the nails aren't too long, if there's rots, the siding you'll be able to, or it wasn't nailed right. I don't know if any of you guys ever took sections of siding. I can pull the whole section out and push it back in. Either they nail it right or something's rotted, or the nails just work their way out. Look for that. Go ahead, Jim. Clearance to horizontal surfaces, roof surfaces. Usually we always say a gap. I think sometimes, in my personal opinion, 2 inches is a lot. You'll see this, when you're looking up, you'll see a 2-inch gap, and all of a sudden you'll see the step flashing. That's what this stuff is actually. You'll see the step flashing, and you'll see that. So, they want like 2 inches, as long as there's a gap there, and we see that a lot with clapboard. It's all rotted. Sometimes a couple layers of roof, and then they don't always cut it up high enough. Vinyl siding, it's not the end of the world. They usually go up a little bit, and sometimes they'll just put it right down the J channel right on the roof, and the vinyl siding back to the roof. Decks and porches. Deck surfaces allowing siding to create a splashback during rain and trap moisture during snow accumulations, a minimum of 1 inch. Most of the time, the J channel's right down on the roof. The biggest thing is the flashing underneath that siding and deck. That's the biggest thing. If that's done properly, and then the J channel, it's in like that, and then the siding, this is up under the siding, you've got the Tyvek, the paper underneath. It's all done right. Water shouldn't get in. But again, the door is next to it. If that door wasn't flashed properly, water will work its way in. House the other day, 99, all staining in the basement. So clearly, water is getting in. So I made note of it, and and let them know that it looks like under certain conditions water was getting behind the siding, and it was vinyl siding. Concrete slabs, walkway paddles, driveways adjacent to siding cause similar moisture concerns. Observe for water staining indicating splashback or inadequate clearances. Below grade installation, siding extended below grade at walkout basements or grade changes must have proper flashing and waterproofing, or should terminate above grade entirely. A lot of times they regrade the house because it's settled, and they bring it right up to the siding. This is actually perfect right here. Plenty of room. Improper termination at foundation walls. The transition from siding to foundation requires careful detailing. Siding should terminate above the foundation with J channel or other appropriate trim, maintaining a minimum of 6-inch clearance to grade. Problematic conditions: siding overlapping foundation with no clearance to grade, missing or improperly installed termination trim, gaps allowing pest entry behind siding, no flashing at siding to foundation transition, caulk used as primary water protection instead of mechanical flashing. I wish I brought it in. The biggest thing is the line sets. When I do radon, it's tight. At 3.5 outside diameter, the hole's 3.5. I just do a little caulk around a tiny bit, just air for infiltration. But really, if I don't do any caulk, nothing's getting in there. A lot of these AC line sets, we see they drill a big hole and they caulk around it, or they don't caulk around it, or they install a dryer vent and there's gaps around, all that. Caulk is okay as long as it's maintained. Most people don't maintain it. And then obviously water, moisture, bugs can get in there. And I see that a lot with a lot of things. Somebody adds something, they do a high efficiency furnace water heater and they put the penetrations out and they don't caulk around it and water can get in there. So any holes or gaps or cracks, I mean, just make note of it. Crack siding, loose siding, just tell your client. It's common. We see it all the time. Some guys do a great job. And some guys, they don't. Like today I had an inspection where the dryer vent was disconnected because the plumber had to run a pipe. So he just pulls it behind the wall, leaves it on the floor, and it's been venting back there since he put that plumbing pipe in. He didn't care. He's like, he just laid the pipe over here. I was like, he didn't care about the dryer vent. Flashing and water management defects. Flashing defects represent the highest risk conditions you'll encounter during siding inspection. While flashing is typically concealed behind siding, its absence or improper installation manifests through observable indicators that experienced inspectors learn to recognize. The longer you do this, you just kind of see something outside and you kind of say, hey, let me go inside and see if there's a problem. Looking for water stains around the window, below the windows, above the windows, on the ceiling, on the wall. These defects are particularly significant because they compromise the entire building envelope water management strategy, potentially leading to extensive concealed damage that exceeds the cost of siding itself. You can see they have the way they flash that window in that picture. When you put a window in, taping it, proper taping. A lot of these guys will put in windows and then they don't put the flashing tape. Sides, top, bottom. All the flashing should overlap, not like this. If you do it like this goes over this, water can get behind. Flashing tape should overlap. So sides, top overlaps, goes across the top of the window flange, and then the bottom. I caulk the whole window except for the bottom. So if there's any moisture, it'll actually drip out. But the flashing tape, sides, top, bottom. A lot of guys do it all wrong. Homeowners might do it. I'm not knocking people who put a window replacement and they just don't do it right and creates problems. Head flashing above openings, direct water outward. Side and sill flashing integrates with weather-resistant barrier. Missing flashing here causes most frequent and severe moisture intrusion. Roof-to-wall intersections, step flashing, kick-out flashing, direct water away from the roof, the wall assemblies, and creates a concentrated water flow behind the siding if you don't do this. And water can get behind and damage it. Even brick. Today I saw that happen even with brick, and it was the bricks were coming out. Water was getting behind it. So I suspect that the wall underneath was rotted. Deck ledger boards. Ledgers attached to the home. Guys put a new deck up. They just attach it right to the house. No flashing. You see it all the time. Nothing, or maybe they don't flash behind it. They don't flash on the sides. Maybe they'll just put some flashing on top and underneath the siding. Water gets behind it. Water gets behind the siding. Just because it's vinyl, water still can get behind it and rot, the wall underneath the deck. Ledgers attached to the home require flashing above and below to prevent water entry at critical structural connection points, often completely omitted. Penetrations, electrical meters, gas lines. These guys put this stuff in and they don't care. They just, it's not their job. So it may not be, the guys who did the siding may have done everything right, but then everybody comes and adds a new meter, gas lines, vents, other penetrations, and they don't even bother flashing it properly. See it all the time. Or they just seal it up with caulk, a little bit of caulk, a little duct seal, and we're good to go. Observe indicators of flashing deficiencies. What you can see, water staining below windows or at corners. You can see it inside. Discoloration patterns suggesting concentrated water flow. Efflorescence on the foundation below affected areas. Staining on the rim joists, floor joists in the basement. Interior water staining visible. Mold or mildew on exterior seams. Soft or spongy trim around windows. Paint failure or wood rot at trim components. High risk conditions. Vinyl siding installed over brick without flashing modifications. New siding over old with no apparent flashing updates. Additions or modifications with mismatched materials, different types of siding, and that can create a problem. Visible caulk as sole protection at critical transition points. Staining patterns consistent across similar details. When these indications are present, recommend invasive evaluation by a qualified Just recommend a qualified siding contractor to further evaluate, cost of repair, et cetera, however you want to word it, just have somebody come in and sometimes even those guys, they'll tell you, I don't know until I pull it off. I can't tell you. I think your inspector's right. We just have to take the siding off and see. And a lot of times they don't own the house yet. So, it becomes a problem. Over-reliance on sealants instead of flashing. This guy's actually caulking. There's the tape. The window tape is on there. Use the caulk goes under the window flange, then the tape, then the tie back over the top, folded back over and taped on. Heavy caulk. Caulk has its purpose, but not as the sole thing to protect against water infiltration. If you notice anything where you think water is getting in, especially around the windows, or things need to be caulked, just mention it. Go ahead, Jim. Blocked or missing drainage openings. I'm just going to point out what I did on this. This is just me being anal Scott here. Is this J channel is the bottom of my board and batten, right? This is how it terminates on the bottom of my garage. Looks nice. They don't really have a piece for the bottom. So I did this. Now I found water was sitting in there. So what I did is I drilled my own holes on the bottom. So water drains out. In this case, that was just so water doesn't get on and rot the siding. But in this case, siding should have a little weep hole. You'll see a little weep hole. Sometimes they get clogged up with dirt. And that, if there's any condensation or moisture that happens to get, somebody power washes the house, instead of power washing in the direction where it overlaps, they might get water behind, and sometimes it doesn't always drain out, or you get wind-driven rain. Viewing code, if you're watching this, is LK7236. Trim accessory issues, gaps, we talked
about
that.
this.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Move on.
Corner post defects.
We kind of talked about that. Sometimes too short, too long, and
physical damage, environmental.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That was a Jesus. That looks like somebody was threw stuff at an abandoned house. If you look at the windows, but even look at the window up there, real quick, guys. Look at that window. They did not flash that window. The siding, all right, isn't too bad. The new windows in there, we see this all the time. You see the old trim. Water flash isn't done right. Water gets in there. It gets inside. It gets under the window. Rots. A lot of times you push down on that aluminum cladding that's covering the sill, and it's rotted, or there's termite damage and water gets behind there. That's everywhere where there's a penetration could be a potential problem. That's where you got to look at. The main part of the siding isn't bad. It's wherever they penetrate, where they put a hole, wherever windows. That's the stuff you got to concentrate. And if there's a problem, point it out. Even new stuff, more than likely it's okay. It's just the houses that have been around a while and somebody comes in and gives them a great price to put the siding. Wind-related displacement, high wind damage. We've seen siding blow off, high winds. A lot of times you can put it back on. Sometimes it rips and you can't. You have to buy new panels if you can match it. Usually some of the siding is pretty close. Take it off the back, under the deck. It's all wind damage, torn nailing hem. So this is all wind damage. And if it can be replaced, great. If not, more than likely it's torn at the hem and there's not much you can do. Hail, I see hail on roof. I guess if it's really hard hail and it's blown at the house, it could cause damage to the siding. If it's better siding, it shouldn't crack that easily. Fading brittleness, yeah. Cheaper siding in the wintertime, it'll crack easier.
Yeah.
Better siding will not. You can just feel it. Just push on the siding. You can feel the cheap siding, and there's a lot of cheap stuff out there. This looks like a gas grill again. Or it can even look like that from the sun. Grills, reflected sunlight hitting, secondary concern, moisture intrusion, water stains, patterns, efflorescence. We talked about that. Mold. Obviously, if water gets behind there, you can have mold. You can have fungi that can grow underneath. When you take the wall off, you'll see it's all black mold. It's all rotted. Sometimes the carpenter ants. If you see an area where there's a lot of carpenter ants coming out behind the vinyl siding, you're like, why are there so many carpet? They could be nesting in the wall. It got wet. There's a leak behind it under the window, and you go inside and you pull the insulation out, and you see the whole nest of carpenter ants. And if you go inside and there's, the biggest time where I see a lot of issues, and it could be roof too, is capes. They have no soffit, right? There's ice damming. Sometimes it's getting from the gutter, it's going behind the siding, it's going under the roof, and then straight down into the wall. So you might see some of the staining in there. This looks like it might be a chimney issue, but just keep in mind. Conceal wood rot damage sheathing. This is
We talked about that.
old
Yeah.
termite damage, soft spongy, fungal. Go ahead, Jim. Mold conditions. Even when mold, I'll go quick, guys. Even when mold isn't directly visible, conditions that promote its growth behind siding should be documented. Your inspection identifies circumstances where mold is likely developing concealed areas. Moisture source, flashing deficiencies, inadequate clearances, blocked drainage, organic material. Mold likes to grow on wood, paper, and other materials that support growth. Temperature, the right temperature, food source, oxygen, it's going to grow. Time, chronic conditions persist long enough for colonization. If you ever go into a house, you open up the door and you smell mold, or you got that musty smell, and there's something going on in the house. And look at the type of house, look at the outside, look at the siding. It could be from the basement, and there could be something behind the walls, and you can't always tell. And there could be mold growing in the closets. So you just got to look. I mean, we don't have to, but I'll tell you what, if you do an inspection and there's black and white and fungi growing, and you don't say appears to be, seems like, you could get yourself in trouble. This looks like carpenter ant damage with the galleys, gaps, common entry points, gaps to the siding, missing or damaged corner posts, holes, lacking proper sealing, open J channels or trim not properly closed, damaged sections exposed to underlying materials. Document evidence of pest activity, dropping, nesting material, bats. The birds are chewing on the siding, the squirrels, especially associated with siding defects that create entry points. You'll see a lot of these guys sneaking in the attic, making homes. Inspection red flags, staining discolorations, mismatch or patchwork repairs, softness to trim lower courses, evidence of repeated repairs or modifications. The biggest thing I see is windows that they take out and they just plop siding right on it, and they just seam straight up and down, not flash properly. Chances are you're going to have a problem. Best practice for inspection narratives. How you describe defects matters as much as what you observe. Your narratives must balance thoroughness with accessibility, technical accuracy with client comprehension, and appropriate concern with measured restraint. Just keep it simple when you document so people understand. Everybody likes to use big words: deflection, floor sagging. I'm not knocking anybody, but sometimes people are like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Try to be simple so people, the layperson, can understand. Teach me like I know nothing. What are you talking about? I'm not sure. And make sure you tell them and you document, and if you really think it's something that's important, just make sure it's prior to purchase, prior to closing. And I'm a big say it once or twice or three times. So if there's ever a problem, how did you not hear me say it, tell you, and write it in a report? Recommend narrative structure. Effective narratives follow a consistent 4-point structure that addresses observation, implication, recommendation, and limitations. This format ensures completeness while maintaining clarity and protecting your liability position. Observe what was visually present. Recommend who should further evaluate or repair. Implication, why it matters. If you don't fix the siding, water can penetrate behind the sidings and cause rot, mold, et cetera, et cetera. Limitations, why it could not be confirmed. The wall was covered, there were stored items in the way, trees were overgrown, why you couldn't inspect the siding or the flashing or whatever else you're trying to inspect at the time. Conditions warning, immediate specialist evaluation. Signs of moisture intrusion, water staining patterns, interior moisture indicators, or visible mold suggest active or recent water penetration requiring immediate assessment of extent and damage. Suspected structural implications, soft or yielding areas suggesting underlying rot, particularly at structural components like rim joists, headers, and load-bearing walls. Extensive prior repairs, multiple repair attempts, or patchwork modifications suggest systematic problems requiring comprehensive evaluation rather than continual or reactive fixes. Suspected flashing deficiencies. Observable indicators consistent with missing or inadequate flashing at critical locations where concealed damage is likely. For these conditions, recommend evaluation before closing, or tell them, have this fixed. You always hear people say, hey, tell me what I should do now, what I should do later, what's really important. I mean, It depends. It depends. What you cannot confirm during visible inspection: presence of conditions of weather-resistant barriers, proper installation, concealed flashing, extent of concealed deterioration, fastener penetration and security, compliance with manufacturer installation guides. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry, went 5 minutes over, gentlemen, and I rushed.
Okay. So,
hey, listen, most of you guys do this every day. You do it all the time. There's a lot of things that you see, things you can't see. Just document and just try to explain it to people. A lot of times we rush through the inspection and people are walking around and you don't say anything to them. I always try to explain it to them, be as honest as I can. And it is what it is, but you hate to get that phone call. Hey, Robert, you inspected my house. And usually it's you get nervous when they say, hey, Ed, you inspected my house. And you're like, oh, what did I do wrong? It's like, no, we're selling it. We want you to do another house. And you're like, oh, you're waiting for them to drop something on you, but do the best you can and document, and you shouldn't have a problem.
So this was very, very informative. In 2 weeks, we have GFCI outlets. The other thing too is if you have, I get some emails and some chats like 3 minutes before the webinars start. If you're having trouble logging on, just go to our website and look for the link that says Zoom. That's got the login information there. So if you don't get an email with an invitation, you can just go to our website, you click on Zoom, you click on the logo, all the login information is right there, and you can join anytime. We also have, you saw the last slide, has the logo, which will be available on the website for download to your website if you want to put those logos on there. And I will get certificates out to you by the morning. And if you have any questions, just email us. And if you don't get your certificate, check your junk folder first. It's usually there. Go ahead,
Guys, let me show you this real quick. This undersill, which nobody ever puts on. I shouldn't say nobody. You just have the side. So this is I just want to show you how good this stuff is. So if you ever see it, you look like a hero. It locks in. Now look at this. You can barely pull it out. So that siding will never fall below the window. A lot of times we pull up to the house and the siding's hanging. If they just put that undersill, it'll lock right in. You'll never have a problem. But nobody does it. It costs more money. Have a nice night, guys.
Thank you.